One night, everything changed. What I thought was a normal evening, what I thought was a safe space turned into something I could never imagine. He pulled me into his room. My own son and what happened next shattered me forever. This is not easy for me to share. It's a truth I've buried deep for too long, but I can't carry it anymore. I need to tell you what happened because the silence is only making it worse. This story, it's real. It's raw, and it's something I can never take back. I had always been close with my son from the moment he was born. I felt an overwhelming love for him. I watched him grow from a curious child to a confident young man, and I was proud of the person he was becoming. We had always shared a special bond, one that made me believe I knew him better than anyone. He was charming, full of life, always the center of attention at family gatherings, and so full of dreams for his future. He'd come to me for advice, and I'd listen with all the patience I could, muster loving the moments we shared. He'd talk about his friends, his plans, his struggles, everything to me. He was still that little boy I'd held in my arms all those years ago. We'd laugh over old family photos, remembering holidays spent together, and the simple moments that filled our home with warmth. His smile was always enough to light up any room, and I always thought I understood him, his quirks, his fears, and even his ambitions. He was like any other young man in his 20s, determined, strong, and occasionally reckless. But I never imagined that anything would change between us, that one moment would come where everything would shift. But looking back now, I see it. The small, almost imperceptible changes that I missed, the way his eyes would linger on me longer than they should, or how his touch would feel just a little too lingering when handing me something brushing against my hand, I didn't want to believe it. At first, it felt wrong to even think about, so I pushed it aside, convincing myself it was nothing more than a fleeting moment or a random gesture, but deep down, something didn't feel right. There were times when we'd sit together watching TV, and he would move closer than necessary. His leg brushing against mine, I'd feel that strange, almost uncomfortable heat between us, and I'd pull away trying to ignore the tension. But he didn't seem to notice. He was always so casual, as if it was just a normal thing to do. It was small, almost insignificant, but the more it happened, the more I started questioning myself. And when he'd look at me, really look at me, his gaze would seem too intense, too searching. It wasn't the way a son should look at his mother. I couldn't pinpoint why it made me uncomfortable, but I felt it. And each time I'd push it down, pretending I wasn't feeling what I was feeling. But looking back now, those little moments stand out like pieces of a puzzle I refuse to put together now. They haunt me. I can't help but wonder, should I have seen it coming? Should I have recognized the signs earlier one night? I was in the kitchen tidying up after dinner when I heard his voice calling me from his room. It wasn't unusual. He'd done it before. Sometimes he just wanted to talk, to tell me something about his day, or to ask for advice. I didn't think much of it, but this time something felt different in the air, like the whole house had shifted just a little. I brushed it off, though, assuming I was just being paranoid. I wiped my hands on the dish towel and made my way down the hall as I walked. I couldn't help but notice how quiet the house was, too quiet. The usual sounds of life, footsteps, conversations, laughter were absent, leaving only the faint hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock on the wall. My mind wandered for a moment, thinking about everything going on, about how things had seemed so perfect just days ago. But that uneasy feeling wouldn't go away. I knocked lightly on his door, but before I could even open it fully, I felt something strange. The door slammed shut behind me as I stepped inside. It wasn't the slam of a wind gust or a random accident. It was deliberate, as if sealing me in. I froze for a split second, my heart suddenly racing. I turned back to look at him. He was sitting on the bed, watching me intently, his expression unreadable, but he didn't speak. At first, the silence hung between us, heavy and thick, stretching out longer than it should have. I felt a chill, like the room had suddenly grown colder, and I shivered, although I couldn't tell if it was the air or the situation making me feel that way. His eyes. There was something in them that unsettled me. It wasn't the look of a son greeting his mother. It wasn't the warmth I was used to, the affection that had always been there. No, this time. there was something else. His gaze was intense, too intense, like he was waiting for something from me, like he was searching for something in me. It sent a ripple of discomfort through my body, but I didn't know how to react. My feet felt like they were glued to the floor. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Then, without breaking eye contact, he reached for me. His hand slid across the bed toward me, slowly, deliberately, as though he had all the time in the world. I could feel my pulse quicken, the blood rushing to my head when his fingers brushed against my arm. A wave of heat swept through me, but it was nothing like the warmth a mother should feel when her child reaches out. This was different, wrong, but I couldn't pull away. I didn't know how to. His voice was soft, almost comforting, but the words he spoke only made my stomach twist further. He said, "It'll make everything better. We'll be fine." He sounded so calm, so sure, like he believed it. But I couldn't think straight. My mind was screaming, telling me that this was wrong, that I should run, that I should stop him. But instead, I stood there, frozen like a spectator in my own body. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. I could feel the panic rising inside me, my body wanting to run, but my feet stayed planted. My hands clutched by my sides, and as much as I wanted to push him away, to scream at him, a part of me, a part one couldn't even begin to understand, felt something else, something that shouldn't have been there. It wasn't desire, but it was something like it, something dark and confusing that clouded my judgment. Chest tightened as I watched him lean closer, his breath warm against my skin. I couldn't look away. I couldn't stop it. The weight of the moment hung in the air, suffocating me. All I could do was stand there, paralyzed by fear, guilt, and confusion. And in that moment, I knew something irreversible was about to happen, but I couldn't escape it. And then, without hesitation, it happened. I don't know how it all unfolded so quickly, but in that moment, all sense of control, all my instincts to run to stop him melted away. He was closer now, so close that I could feel his breath on my skin, and it felt like time had slowed down, like everything around me had disappeared. It was as if the world was pressing in too tight, too suffocating. His hand touched my cheek gently. At first like a reassurance, but it wasn't reassuring. It felt wrong, so wrong. My body trembled, but I couldn't move, couldn't push him away. It was like I was trapped inside myself, watching helplessly as something I never thought possible was happening. His lips brushed against my ear, his words like a whisper that sent a shiver down my spine. "It'll be okay," he said, but I knew deep down that it wouldn't be. There was no turning back in a blur. His hands were on me, pulling me closer, and I couldn't understand what was happening. I tried to speak, to scream, to push him away, but my body didn't respond the way it should. It was like I was paralyzed, caught in a moment I couldn't escape, and before I even realized what was happening, it was done. What I didn't know was this would be the beginning of a nightmare. The next few days felt like I was trapped in a fog, unable to find clarity every time I saw him. My stomach twisted into knots. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't even bring myself to speak to him. It was like every glance, every word carried the weight of what had happened, and it made me want to break down all over again. How could something so horrible have occurred, heard in the place I thought was safe, my own home, my own flesh and blood? I kept asking myself, what had we done? What had I done? It didn't feel real, but the shame was suffocating. It was all consuming, like a dark cloud hanging over me, following me wherever I went. There were moments when I would find myself alone in the house, pacing back and forth, trying to make sense of it all, but no matter how many times I played it in my head, there was no making sense of it. The guilt gnawed at me. Relentless and unforgiving, I couldn't escape it. Every room in the house seemed to echo with the memory of that night. Every corner reminded me of how wrong everything had become, that I tried to push the thoughts away, to convince myself that maybe it was just a mistake, a lapse in judgment that could be forgotten. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I knew it wasn't that simple. How could I live with myself? What kind of mother was I? How could I ever forgive myself for what had happened? I couldn't even look in the mirror without seeing a stranger staring back at me, someone I didn't recognize. I had betrayed everything I believed and everything I stood for, and worse, I had allowed it to happen. The house felt empty, even when it wasn't. I would sit by the window staring out into the quiet night, lost in my own thoughts. The silence around me felt deafening. The world outside seemed to go on as normal, but inside, everything had shifted. I felt so isolated, so alone in my shame. There was no one I could turn to, no one could understand. I kept wondering if I would ever be able to look him in the eye again, if the weight of what had happened would ever fade, but deep down I knew it wouldn't. The guilt would follow me, haunt me for as long as I lived, and the worst part was, there was no way to undo it. There was no way to go back to how things were before I was trapped in my own nightmare, and no matter how hard I tried to escape, it was always there. Waiting point one night he came to me. His face was pale, eyes wide, and there was a nervous energy about him that sended chills down my spine. He stood in the doorway, hesitating like he wasn't sure how to begin. Then he stepped closer and his words hit me with a force I wasn't prepared for. "I can't stop thinking about it," he whispered, his voice breaking about us. I froze, every muscle in my body went rigid, and my heart raced. I tried to speak, but my mouth was dry. My thoughts scattered. He didn't give me a chance to respond. "I can't stop thinking about how it felt, what we did. It meant something. I need more." His voice wavered, desperate, and I could see the pain in his eyes, but it didn't make sense. How could this be happening? How could we be standing here talking about something so wrong, so impossible? My mind was in chaos, but my heart, my gut, knew the truth. This wasn't something I could give him. I couldn't give him what he was asking for, no matter how much he needed it. No matter how much he pleaded, the weight of the reality of what we had done crashed me all over again. And I realized in that moment, he wasn't just asking for something physical. He was asking for something deeper, something more dangerous, something that would only destroy us both further. That I tried to speak, but my voice felt like it wasn't even mine. It was just a whisper, broken and small. No, we can't do this. This. Wrong. I don't know what to say. But the words didn't even feel right. They didn't make the knot in my stomach loosened. He stepped closer, his desperation rising. "But we can't just forget it. Can we? It wasn't a mistake. I can't stop thinking about you, about what happened. It's not over." His eyes searched mine as if looking for an answer, for some way to make this real. But I couldn't give him what he wanted. I couldn't make sense of it. I couldn't even begin to understand how this was even a conversation we were having. I stood there, rooted to the spot, feeling like I was sinking, like the floor was about to swallow me whole. The words I should have said, the things I should have done, all seemed so far away. How had everything spiraled so completely out of control? How had we come to this point where there was no easy way out, no way to fix this? But deep down, I knew I couldn't undo what had been done. No matter how much I wanted to scream, to take back every moment, every step, I couldn't. What had happened was irreversible. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a nightmare when I could never escape. The room was silent for a long moment, heavy with the weight of our unspoken words. My chest felt tight, my breath shallow. The air between us felt thick, charged with so many emotions that I couldn't name them all. Desperation, guilt, fear, shame, but most of all, regret. I realized then this was no longer just a mistake. This was a reality that I would have to live with, whether I wanted to or not. Tears welled up in my eyes as the weight of it all came crashing down on me. I collapsed onto the bed, my hands trembling, my body shaking with the force of the emotions that had been building inside me. I had to face it. I couldn't hide from this any longer. There was no way to pretend it hadn't happened. The consequences were already set in motion, and nothing I did could ever erase what had transpired. I had crossed a line, and now, the nightmare I had been living was no longer a nightmare. It was my reality, and there was no escaping it. I wish I could say that everything got better, but I found a way to forgive myself, or that I learned something meaningful from this experience. But the truth is, before I could even open it fully, every day feels like a battle. I wake up haunted by the choices I made, by the moments I allowed to pass by the sun. I thought I knew. I used to see him as a young man, with so much potential, full of life and promise. Now I can't look at him without remembering what we've both lost. I carry the weight of it every day, the guilt, the confusion, the shame, and I wonder if it will ever be possible to move past it. It's been a long, lonely road since that night. I've tried to piece my life back together, but the cracks are always there. They're never far from the surface. And no matter how hard I try to push them away, they keep coming back. There's no easy way to forget. I can't undo what happened, and I don't know if I ever will. But despite everything, I'm still here. I'm still trying to make sense of it all. And if nothing else, I've learned that facing the truth, no matter how painful, is the only way to begin healing. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I'm here to share my truth. If you've ever found yourself trapped in a situation like mine, or if you've carried secrets too heavy to bear, know that you're not alone. If you've ever felt like you didn't know who to turn to, or you're struggling with a weight you can't carry by yourself, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it together. You don't have to face it alone. Let's create a space where we can share, connect, and support each other. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. And remember, you're not alone in your struggles. Let's talk about it together.